Welcome to the Attic Mana Dad here. It's the channel where we explore what's fun in Magic, mostly on Arena, but also in this case with Aetherdrift on Arena, on Magic the Gathering Online, on paper. That's right. It is the last part of this giant video that I'm recording here. I'm making live versions of each section. You get to listen in as I record for the big long video, which I'll eventually assemble and post as one long video on YouTube. And this final section is about cards you should definitely avoid and the cards you should windmill slam. They're so good. They're bombs. What are the worst cards in the set, at least in terms of draft and limited, and what are the best cards in the set? That's what we're going to talk about. This section comes after the top commons section. If you want to learn about the top commons, that video is already posted. It's already getting lots of views. Top commons everybody wants to see. There's a little preview here of my picks for green, but you can go back and watch that video to see all the rest of them. All right. Well, without further ado, I am going to try to finish this up because I hear my children and I know I could get interrupted at any moment. So let's try to get this video done and exporting so that I can move on with my life. No, because we're excited about Aetherdrift and we want to actually get this information out in a timely fashion so you can all use it at your pre-release or your first couple weeks of draft, because we're all learning the set. All right. Drink some water first. Hope everybody is having a good day today. And if you're not, well, hope the wheel comes around and you have a good day tomorrow or the next day. In 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, on we go to my picks for the traps and the constructed plants. Here they are. These are cards I don't recommend drafting if you're trying to win. Now, some of these are actual money cards. We talked about money cards already earlier in the video, but I will follow this up with the cards that I think are bombs, windmill slams. Draft them as much as possible. Let's take a look at some of these cards, and I'll talk a little bit about my reasoning of why I don't think you should draft it. First of all, Radiant Lotus. This is a money card, so I mean, if you're in paper, go ahead and snag this, but don't expect it to be good in the deck. I just don't think there's a super amount of support. There's not a lot of things to do with a crap ton of mana and the build around. You can definitely get a ton of artifacts down, but then why do you want to sacrifice them all? There's no good reason where you would want to mass sacrifice and make a bunch of mana. If there was some way to make your opponent have to take damage for the mana or something, that would be one thing. There's a card called Boom Pile, which is that rare, which you can put a bunch of mana into. But even if you get Boom Pile, it's still just a 2-card combo. I don't know. I'll definitely be drafting Radiant Lotus to have for Commander, but I won't be drafting it to try and put in a deck. Similarly, Ancient Vendetta. This is the only uncommon I put on here, but this is one I think is really more of a constructed thing. There is Ketramos there at the end, can use it, but there's really not a ton of use for it. Maybe you can bring it in on the sideboard if there's really something that you know you would spend 4 mana to search your opponent's graveyard, hand, and library for. What I love it for constructed is, like, you know, casting it a bunch and just taking all the lands out of your opponent's deck or something, because you can get up to 4 cards and it doesn't restrict you from taking away lands. But I don't think Ancient Vendetta, it's 4 mana, it does nothing to the board. I don't think it's going to be very playable, so don't go out of your way to draft that. Similarly, Last Ride, really cool, Death Shadow, but in terms of building around, black actually has stuff that gains life. I mean, there are a few things that also deal damage to you, but I just don't think this card is probably as good. I mean, you can play it. It's not unplayable, but I don't think it's as good as you think it maybe is if you're basing it on Death Shadow. I'm just not super high on vehicles to begin with, so I'll let you know that right off the bat. Paying 4 mana and 2 life to draw a card, and then maybe you activate this later in the game. I don't know. Now I'm sort of talking myself into it, but I think it's better in constructed. I think if you go in thinking you have a bomb here with the last ride, you're gonna have a bad time. But if you go in thinking you're gonna have some fun with it, then by all means, unstoppable plan. I don't think there's a ton to do with this in limited. Fun card, especially for commander. But similar with repurposing bay. I did show you how you could use it in the mill deck just to find your mill card. But it is a super build aroundy, hard to make work. Pod, birthing pod style, Oswald Fiddlebender style thing. It could definitely have uses in constructed. I haven't seen anybody break it. I know Aspiring Spike is trying to break it for modern, but hasn't yet. So there you go. Repurposing bay. Just avoid it. Go draft a nice uncommon or common from your pack. And then Ketramo is very exciting for older formats. I just think in limited. So if you're not drafting for value, it's going to be hard to make work. Maybe if you get enough Ancient Vendettas, but then you're paying 4 mana to like maybe draw a card. If you can get something out of your opponent's graveyard with the Ancient Vendetta, it's going to be so hard to turn on. But hey, there you go. Those are cards when I'm trying to win, I'm not going to be focusing too much on. And Ketramos is certainly the type of card that you see in a pack and go, whoa, okay. On the other hand, we have a lot of windmill slams. I think there's nothing here that says to me like super busted in the way that, like, how some rares can just run away with a format. You've got Sky Sovereign Console Flagship, which you see not very often, but it is one of the special guests, and that's a windmill slam. 5 mana, comes down, deals 3 to a creature, planeswalker, and then just sticks around as a crew 3, 6/5 flyer, which will close out games very, very fast. Playable in constructed, so it's also got good value. Ether Spark remains to be seen how good this is. Some people have compared it to the One Ring, which is a bit overblown, but I think in limited, you're just going to basically put this in any deck with creatures, and you're going to, of course, have creatures. So it's a planeswalker equipment, comes down, +1 to attach, and then once it's attached, it's hard for them to remove the loyalty from it, and then you're just getting loyalty whenever you deal combat damage with whatever it's attached to. And that's any kind of combat damage. That could be on defense, it can block, whatever. So that, again, like all these planeswalkers, rich gets richer kind of things. It's once you get it and you get it equipped and you're attacking with it. I guess the good thing is there's a lot of artifact based removal. So if your opponent plays this, you probably can. There's a good chance you'll have an answer in your deck. And I have advised you to play to main deck artifact removal in this format. Something like 65% of the cards, whatever I said it was, 62% of the cards in the set are artifacts. Spectacular Pile Up is the board wipe of the set. It is 5 mana, not 4 mana, which makes it a little less, but it removes the indestructible clause, which is good against these things like Sab Sunin. So, and you can cycle it if you're way ahead and you're not going to need it. Cycle it away and go get some more gas. But we know board wipes are always good and always have a good, decent win rate, at least when they're played correctly. Glory Heath Lynx is my pick for the Mythic Uncommon. I think I spoiled that a bit earlier in the video if you watched earlier parts of the video. But 2/3 lifelink, you don't really need to know much more, but it can also go start getting you planes if you saddle it up. So that's pretty awesome. Possession Engine, anything where you're gaining control of an opponent's creature. Unfortunately, the creature can't attack or block, so it's not super like a 2-for-1, but it is a little bit like a 2-for-1 in that you have a 5/5 vehicle with crew 3 left. Now, you don't want this vehicle to lose in combat because your opponent's going to get their creature back. So there's a little bit of tension there, but I think you'd probably be happy to have a Possession Engine if you're in blue. Is it Windmill Slam territory? Well, no, probably not. But for me, I like it. There's a good chance of being on the higher end of the win rates. Similar with the mill deck, I think people will probably sleep on this, and then people will figure out that this card can be used to mill people out really quickly, and then it'll go back and forth. I think there will be a metagame with River Churn Monument, but if you saw earlier in the video where I broke down how I would build the mill deck, you can agree or disagree on that. On the other hand, you have stuff like Speed Demon, which is more of a traditional thing. It's a little bit of a knife's edge to play this card, depending on how much speed you have and how much life you have. There is life gain in black, so if you do draft Speed Demon, if you do Windmill Slam this, pick one, pack one, get some of that black life gain added in, because it will draw you X cards, but also lose you X life, where X is your speed. But a 5/5 flying trample closes out the game pretty fast, so I guess you can't sit behind it necessarily, or maybe you can if your speed is only 1. It's an interesting deck building issue, but I think in general, you're probably always going to run this. You're probably almost always going to be happy when you top deck this later in the game. Chandra Spark Hunter is not the most powerful Planeswalker, but it does have the rich get richer Planeswalker effect that I dislike. If you manage to play it onto a mostly empty board, you're just slamming 3/2 hasty vehicles and drawing cards by sacrificing them. And yeah, that's probably going to accrue value and win you the game eventually if opponent can't stop it immediately. Gonosaur Rex. This is another no-brainer, an 8/8 trample for 5 mana that can also be a combat trick if you need it to be. So this is a big Windmill Slam, and so is Sab Sunin. Talked about this earlier, but for the purposes of this video, 6/6 reach, trample, indestructible. Can't attack or block unless it has an even number of counters on it. But if you Windmill Slam this, pick one, pack one, there's a number of things in green that can give +1/+1 counters. So you can even, as a combat trick, turn on its ability to attack or block. And it's also going to put counters, it's going to grow and draw cards. So kind of like, what more do you want? It's a 6/6 reach, trample, indestructible that's getting bigger and drawing you cards. And maybe you can't always attack or block with it, but I think it's going to be pretty good regardless. And thank you for everyone who stuck through the whole video, or thank you for those who just jumped to the end and listened to a part of it, because I haven't done one of these set breakdowns for a while. They were pretty popular when I was doing them regularly, but they take a crap ton of work. So it makes it all worth it when you subscribe and you comment and you let me know if it was helpful. And it will be worth it if it was helpful for you. So I hope it is. I hope you will let me know what decks of all these decks that you can build in this format you're excited to build. And I hope you'll come back to the channel and check out when we do some draft and sealed early on in the format. And then we'll also play some standard and some other formats with the new cards, and just generally be having fun with the old Aetherdrift set. That's it for me. This is Manadad, reminding you Magic is a game so fun, even dads can enjoy it. Adios.